I'm just outside here in my garden, enjoying this time of the day. This is really one of the most beautiful times of the day, right after early in the morning, I would say. It's this time of the day, right before the sun completely descends. And when you start gardening, you will notice that the most beautiful parts of the day are either early in the morning or at this time of the day, which is really right before the sun goes down completely. And it's just so beautiful. There's something about how the air feels, how the atmosphere appears, the the orange reddish hues of the sun. It's just so harmonious and calming and tranquil. It's very, very beautiful. Um, and this is one of the reasons why I love gardening is you can see the totality of nature. It's not just looking at grass. You're looking at the weeds, of course, but at the same time you have the fruits, like this guy here. You have the vegetables, you have the herbs, you have the birds chirping, you have the insects. It all comes together in a beautiful orchestra of nature. You see the full phenomena of nature, and it's just so tranquil and calming. And it's one of the reasons why I love gardening. When I first began gardening, I wanted to garden so that I could go outside and just pick stuff to eat, and I still love that. I mean, who doesn't? Just going outside and picking food in your backyard and then going back inside and cooking it. Or, you want to make some tea, you go outside and pick some herbs. Or you're cooking something and then let's say you're cooking a steak or some chicken thighs. And you realize, wow, this steak would go really good with some rosemary or some thyme or some sage. You run outside real quick, you pull the herbs, and you go back inside and use them. There's just something so satisfying about that. It's just so beautiful. And you don't have to garden to be completely self-sufficient. Like, I'm not completely self-sufficient. I still have to go buy potatoes because, potatoes are, I think, pretty tricky, and you really need a lot of space to grow potatoes. I still buy tomatoes because I focus. Well, when I grow food, I like to grow a lot of what I grow. So if I grow okra, I have a lot of okra plants. If I grow eggplants, I have a lot of eggplants. So right now I have enough room to grow a good amount of okra and a lot of eggplants. I have enough eggplants to eat eggplant pretty much every day now. I have to expand the garden so that I could have enough space so I can grow a lot of tomato plants so that I can eat a lot of tomatoes, enough to last me throughout the season, the warm season, and probably also to jar tomatoes for tomato sauce and things like that. So that's why I don't grow tomatoes right now. But you don't have to grow food. You don't have to garden to be completely self-sufficient. But you can garden so that you can be self-sufficient in some things. And there's also a lot of satisfaction in gardening. Even if you have a small amount of space, there's something very beautiful about just going outside, seeing herbs, seeing vegetables, being able to pick it and go inside your kitchen and cook it, and also being able just to sit around your plants. It's just so, I don't know, it's just so gorgeous. Like, this is what I'm looking at right now. You can see the eggplants in front of me. I have a lot of eggplants. I grow a lot of eggplant. And I think eggplants are just a wonderful fruit. It's not a vegetable, it's technically a fruit. It's very filling, very meaty. You can do a lot of things with it. It's very versatile. It's also very heat tolerant and very resilient. There's not a lot of insect issues. In fact, I don't think there's any insect issues with eggplants. I've never sprayed my eggplants with any sort of insecticide. I've never seen insects eating my eggplants. I've had issues with rodents, but that's about it. But just to go outside and sit with your plants is something so calming and tranquil and so satisfying. When I first began gardening, I gardened so that I could just go outside and pick food. But now gardening has come upon me with a philosophical essence, a philosophical aspect. Every year that goes by, gardening becomes more philosophical for me. And it has taken upon itself this philosophical characteristic and nature. Because now when I garden, there's almost this feeling of melancholy that I have when I look at my garden. Even though the plants can be very healthy, the plants can be very fruitful, the soil can be very fecund and very nurturing. There is still this bitter sweetness that comes with gardening, because you know that as beautiful and as fruitful as these plants are, they're all eventually going to die. And when the plants first begin to flower and their fruits begin to bloom, they look very healthy. They look very healthy. But then as the summer nears its end, the plants begin to take upon this appearance of exhaustion. You look at the leaves, the plants look drained, because for months they've been draining their nutrition and their energy into producing these fruits. And you see in gardening the cycle of birth, life, and death. You see it year round. Every season you see it. Be it in the warm season or be it in the cold season, you see this. In the cold season, you're growing your leafy greens, you're growing your root vegetables, you're growing a lot of different herbs, and you see plants being born, plants living, and plants dying. And so there is this continuous presentation of sacrifice that is seen in gardening. You see it. So gardening isn't just something you do to go outside and pick food, although that is the ultimate goal of gardening, at least from a physical standpoint. But gardening is a continual presentation of birth, life, and death. And in that regard, gardening is a form of meditation. Gardening is very meditative because you are constantly seeing the reality of life. And you're seeing also in that cycle of birth, life, and death, sacrifice. The plant dies so that the seed dies so that the plant may grow. The plant dies so that the seeds may prosper, because the plant puts all of her energy into her seeds. Her seeds are her children, essentially. And then the seed dies so that the plant may grow. And you see this cycle going on and on and on. And in the process of all that, the plant produces fruit. The fruit dies so that the seeds may spread. And the seed dies so that the plant may live. It's so real. The reality of death is put before your face constantly in gardening. So gardening, and this is why I encourage all of you actually to start a garden. I encourage all of you to start a garden, and some of you guys have gardened after watching my videos, and I find that to be so touching and really splendid, because I'm happy to encourage people to begin this beautiful activity, this beautiful pastime that sadly, because of what has happened with the obsession of lawns that has been here since the 1930s, but especially since after the end of the Second World War, we have forgotten how wonderful this pastime is. And so I would encourage all of you guys to start a garden, and as small as that garden may be, you can still experience, for one, the satisfaction of picking food and cooking with it, and two, the meditative characteristic of gardening. So anyway, hope you guys have enjoyed this message. You guys just heard some theology. God bless. These eggplants are still growing. This one's gotten a little fruit. These are the youngest eggplants that I have. And then I have these green beans that are climbing up these trellises, and they are climbing. They are definitely making it. These eggplants are pretty mature. And then you have all of these eggplants and okras and peppers over here. But yeah, start growing, guys, and keep on growing.